Hi, my name is Mirena Umizaj, CEO and founder of Mirena & Co. I want to welcome and thank you for joining me on the Heart of Law podcast as I broadcast from my home studio. I designed this podcast to stay connected with the legal community in the United States. I want to provide meaningful content for those who want to learn more from experienced lawyers and firms, how they think and operate, their legal practice, and our business. I want to know what drives them, what holds them back. How have their practices changed since the global pandemic? I want to provide a platform and space that is real and raw and honest. I'm humbled to be part of this community, so I want to showcase the inspiring people who function in our legal system, the folks with profound impact who help our industry evolve every day because of their passion and complete dedication. Before we dive in, remember you can find my podcast videos on my YouTube channel and on iTunes. Don't forget to subscribe. Welcome to the Heart of Law podcast. My name is Mirena Umizaj and I will be your host. Since this is still a new podcast, I want to take a moment to answer who, why, and how. I'm not a lawyer, and I have worked in the legal space for about 10 years, serving this community through various financial legal services. But career aside, this podcast was born in the desire to connect with people that I am deeply inspired by people who I love, admire, and I'm intrigued by. I'd like to get insight into their field of information, both their intellect and their heart, and selfishly also helps me to continue to explore my own personal development, because one thing I know for sure is that we learn best from one another. So that answers the who and the why. The how is I invite mostly attorneys that are truly open, vulnerable, and authentic and willing to tell the truth, share the highs and the lows, and help others find their way. My guest today is attorney John Romano with Romano Law Group out of West Palm Beach, Florida. John, welcome to the Heart of Law podcast. How are you today?
Well, thank you. I'm doing well. And how are you doing today?
Doing great. I'm really excited to have you on.
I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
I have been too. And, times are crazy and you're always so busy, but I really appreciate you taking some time to be here today.
Well, I'm ready for it. I really have been looking forward to this. You have done some remarkable things over the years within the legal field and the work that you do. And so I'm ready. This is going to be fun. I don't know whether to expect a merry-go-round or a roller coaster.
It could be both.
I know.
So, John, your career is one of the richest attorney careers I have ever encountered personally. You have had hundreds of millions of dollars in recoveries and verdicts. You're very active with the state and the national legal seminars, politics and tallahassee, CLE programs, anything from Florida Justice Association to National Trial Lawyers to AAJ to Mass Tort Made Perfect. And most importantly, you run a robust law practice. When I look at you, and I know that this is true for many other people, you embody nobility and you embody the leader. I know that you lead from the heart, and this is why I admire and I'm so inspired by you. And it's not always convenient to lead from the heart because our industry is can be a ruthless industry.
Can be.
But you're one of the most competent and passionate human advocates serving people, and giving their dignity back after their lives have been shattered by a tragic event. So my first question to you is, is it all consuming? Like, is your life all about your work? And if so, do you feel like your life is consumed by your work?
It's such a wonderful question. The answer is, in part, it is consumed by my work, but my work, so that you know this, I don't ever look at it as lawyer or trial lawyer or friend or comrade or whatever it is that I happen to be doing. To me, life is, it comes down to one word: relationships. And everything that I can think of in my life that is wonderful, that has meaning, that is important, that is joyous, that has been at times difficult or challenging, whatever it may be, it's relationships. And the relationships make it all go. And it's an attitude towards others. It's the way in which we care for others, the way we treat each other, the way we deal with jurors and judges and witnesses and police officers and doctors and nurses and priests and nuns and rabbis and everybody else in our lives, and how we respond. And it's mostly about the way we do it with respect and kindness. And that can be done. I don't care how difficult the situation is, how tough it can be. And Mirena, you were talking about leadership a few moments ago. I remember reading a book years ago that said the single greatest characteristic of unique leaders throughout history has been great leaders know, understand, and appreciate their followers. They understand what their followers are all about, and they know the needs and the wants and the desires. And it's so important for us to think like that. So to me, no, the practice of law doesn't consume me. The relationships and the practice of law do. And I love it. And that's why I will never, ever, ever, ever retire. I want to do this forever.
That was going to be a question I had later on, but you answered it. Like, when are you going to retire? But you're never going to retire.
I will never retire. I hope. I mean, some of my friends they chuckle at this, but I say I really honestly hope that I can somehow live to be one of these people that makes it to 110 or 115 years old, and I want to be practicing law. If you have your mind and your wits about you, and you can still grasp all of the legal concepts, then I would say yes. But I'm realistic enough to know this: the sharpness you have when you're 50, you are not going to have when you're 90. So you may move or adjust or adapt to a different role in a law firm. And it may be you're not taking the depositions or taking the lead at trial anymore, but you're giving advice, you're counseling. Some of the greatest mentors go into their 80s and 90s because of the wisdom that they have. And Mirena, I've always said, to me, intelligence is your brain cell power. So if you line up 10 3-year-olds and you give each one of the 3-year-olds a puzzle to put together, the one that has the best intellect will figure it out fast and get it solved. And there might be one that can't figure it out at all, but that's brain cell power. The next part is smart or being bright. And that to me is the extent to which you use your brain cell power.
Yeah.
The third part of it, which becomes the most important, is wisdom. And Norman Cousins once said, wisdom comes in understanding and appreciating consequences. And the sad truth is we learn a lot about becoming wise by mistakes we make, lessons we learn, and we get that experience. And then we start to understand consequences. So
a lot of lawyers, I mean, I think that's beautiful. That's brilliant, because I think the world that we live in puts a big emphasis on brain power and intellect. And that, I think, is sort of parallel with the ego, and the ego always wanting to be right and wanting to win and wanting to get ahead. And so that is very much, I think, traits that people have, especially in high performance professions. And lawyers, are driven by the competition, by the rebuttal, by the verdict, by the settlement amount. So, you know, there is a lot of stereotypes that come with lawyers, that they can be somewhat ruthless. And do you think that's a fair assumption or a fair judgment when it comes to the profession of law?
Well, people are tough on lawyers because of the way lawyers behave. I tell lawyers all the time, if I'm speaking at a seminar, I will often say to lawyers, remember, the way you behave towards the hotel staff is what these people are going to think of lawyers over the next several months. So if you're kind to the woman at the front desk, if you give a good tip to the individual who is taking the bags to your room, if when you order food, if there's a mistake, if you handle it in a sweet, considerate, kind way, instead of cursing and yelling and all of that has a lot to do with it. The greatest lawyers that I've known, for the most part, there are a few exceptions, have been more soft-spoken, kinder, gentler, almost teddy bear type of men and women who are, they just, their goodness just spills out.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what makes them good.
Power.
They're not trying to show everybody that, I'm the smartest or the biggest or the strongest or the fastest or all that. Things will work out when you're working to do your job and take care of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the ultimate power rests in kindness and in love and the intention to help and bring justice to a client that you take on, right? So I wanted to go back and have a follow-up question on my first question to you, which was, is your work consuming? Because you do work, I know personally you work 7 days a week.
I do.
What sacrifices do you make in your personal life to be so completely devoted and committed to your profession?
Wow. First of all, I have always loved the things that I do. I can tell you that I think I might be the only U.S. Marine who enjoyed boot camp. When I played sports, I wanted to practice more. I wanted to get there earlier. I wanted to stay late. And if a coach would stay late, I wanted to work with that coach. I've felt that way in everything that I do. And Mirena, I can tell you this, that even though, yes, I have had intense a look at work to where I've always believed it should be intense and focused, and you put your all into it.
Mm-hmm.
I made it to all the kids' events, unless I was in a long trial in another way away from this area. We made it to the events. I would coach their teams. I would go to all of the PTA meetings. I would go to the teacher meetings. I would be there for the award ceremony. Nancy and I were always together going. I was never one of these fathers that went, PTA meetings are not for me because I got this to do or that. No, we did those things together for and with the kids. We always took great trips, a great ski trip during the ski season and a great summer trip. And I mean, those trips are the experiences of a lifetime. So
and you raised 4 boys, 2 of which
did.
Are lawyers and work with you, correct?
Yes, Erik and Todd are lawyers who work right here with us in the firm, and Chad, our number 3 in age, is an insurance agent, and our youngest son, Ryan, is a doctor.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're a proud papa.
No, we're very proud of them and their wives and the grandkids, and we have a lot of fun. And but I sometimes will run into lawyers who say, well, I can't do this work and I can't do that work and everything because I want to be with my kids at their events. And the next thing I know, they're not with their kids. There's all day. Saturday is on the golf course with their buddies, and Sundays they're off fishing or hunting, and they're not with their kids. And I see that all the time, and I go, come on.
You're calling them out. So
yeah, no, I do. I needle them.
Do you love the fact that 2 of your boys followed in your steps and became attorneys, and you take a lot of pride in that?
No, yes. I mean, it's wonderful. I was in I can tell you everything about the first case I tried with Erik and the first case I tried with Todd. And when I would see them, you hear that noise? You're not going to believe what that is. 2 days ago, I bought an Apple Watch. And although I told you my phone is off, I don't even know how to, well, there, I just slapped it and it stopped. Apparently that worked. But the answer is yes. And I remember being in a trial, and the first case I tried with Erik, he gave the opening statement. The first case that I tried with Todd, he gave the opening statement. And I remember sitting there, both of them, because I do get emotional, tears streaming down my face. In fact, one of the cases that I tried with Todd, a juror, the case settled about 4 or 5 days into the trial, and a juror came up to me when it settled. She comes around and gives me a big hug, and she goes, I saw you crying when your youngin', she called him a youngin', when your youngin' was up there talking to us. And it was emotional to see. But we have a wonderful time trying cases together and working with all of our lawyers in the firm. We have a lot of young lawyers, and it's wonderful to be mentoring them. And we've sent Erik off now. He's president of our trial lawyers in Florida, FJA, this year, and just talked to him a little while ago to get a report. Our legislature is in session, and so there's a lot at stake, and that's a great burden on him, a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, but that's what they were raised to be able to handle.
That's wonderful. I love that. I personally know Erik and Todd, and they're wonderful human beings, and you've done an extraordinary job. So how is it different to practice law since the global pandemic? Tell me a little bit about your specific practice and how things have truly changed since this pandemic.
Well, the first thing I can tell you is that I was in depositions in Tallahassee in the middle of March of 2020 when things seemed to come to a screeching halt. We had a number of additional depositions that were set, and there was an agreement they had to be canceled. People had to go home, and we were worried, especially some that had to get back to Illinois, that flights might all be canceled. And it was that mid-March to the end of March, a time of great uncertainty. Nobody knew. Mm-hmm. I can tell you my position. My position was, we are not going to listen at all to anybody who tells us we need to relax, we need to sit back, wait it out a while, and see what happens. I have never been about approaching things like that, because usually when you're waiting to see what happens, it's not good. I want to be out in front doing something. So I said, we talked to all the lawyers and all of our staff, and I go, move aggressively in setting and taking the depositions. We knew we were going to be doing them as video conference depositions. Get hearings set. This one did throw a curveball at me. I said, let's do whatever we can do to get trials set. And that, we had to adapt because trials were not going to be set. But I learned so many lessons. The first mediation we had, I remember the suggestion from the mediator was, we'll have to do it by video conference call or Zoom call. And I said, this case, you can't mediate via video conference call. And the mediator convinced me we could.
Yeah.
And he told me about how we're going to all be placed into separate rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And although we've all done that, many times by now, at that time we didn't know. And all I will tell you is not only did the case settle, the mediator was extraordinary, and the mediation process, it unfolded in just a beautiful way. And I learned a big lesson. You can. So the changes, we're doing all of our depositions virtual, hearings virtual, mediations virtual, client meetings with a few exceptions. Otherwise, we do them all virtual, but all of the meetings. If you look at my schedule on a given day, video conference, right on down the line. And I think it's, in most respects, it's a change for the good. Like hearings now are virtual for the most part. I would just as soon most hearings remain virtual. But some firms, they told everybody go home and you'll hear from us May 1st. That's not a wise thing to have done. Other firms got scared and they laid a lot of people off. Now I'm talking law firms.
Yeah.
And my personal feeling was that was not a wise thing to do. We didn't do that. We just didn't do that. I wanted everybody working hard and moving the cases. And I will just tell you, I'm not going to name names, but we have one young lawyer in the firm who has had the most remarkable success since the pandemic began.
Wow.
Because he's dedicated, he's loyal, he's devoted, he's focused, and works like crazy. And it's been extraordinary. So the pandemic has changed our practice forever. I think there are some things where we'll never go back to the way it was. But the key is to adapt. And marketing was a big thing. You got to market during the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, I think every firm may be in a unique situation. Some can afford to hold on to their staff, some can't. There's dynamics at play. But I think, your nature is to not let your clients down and to work up the cases and to move forward, because I've said this to you before, you only have one speed, and that is just to continue going forward no matter what. But then the question is, okay, you can do a lot with video conferences, but does it take away from the case to mediate it and try it virtually? What's your honest opinion about that?
Here's my honest opinion. Not being able to meet with clients in person, there is a downside, because at least with most of my clients, whenever I greet them, we give each other big hugs. And I don't know, there's something comforting about hugging people and the physicality of being near each other. I like the warmth of those kinds of meetings. But overall, I feel as though virtual mediations can go on just as well, just as successfully as being there in person. Virtual depositions, just as successful. There might be a few exceptions, and as time goes on, I think we'll be able to do those in person. But for the most part right now, I'd just soon stick with mostly virtual depositions. Anyway, that's how it is with everything except trial. I do feel trial, we're going to want to be there in person with the jurors, seeing the jurors, the judge there. And I think we're getting closer to where we're coming back to that.
Is the Florida justice system significantly backed up, or are they back to business as usual? Do you feel that there is challenges there with the system?
The answer is yes, but I will say this. Whatever the award would be, like a gold star or some kind of medal of honor, I would give overall to the judges and the justices in the state of Florida for this. I'm not going to say in their rulings necessarily, because I've heard around the state of some things that have happened that have not been so good. But here's why I would give the judges in the state of Florida a gold star and say, I so admire what they've done. They have not only kept things moving, they've been exceptionally accommodating to lawyers to let us move the cases. They're giving us time for hearings. When lawyers go in with 50 excuses on why not to do depositions, the judges say, no, 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 no. The depositions are going forward. The hearings are going forward. The mediations are going forward. And they've tried to do everything possible to get cases to where they can be tried either in person or virtually. And because cases have not been tried, I mean, I had a trial in February, just before the pandemic started, not a trial since then, other than some arbitration trials, but not jury trials. So I'm hoping soon we'll be back to jury trials. And all I'm seeing and hearing now is maybe by June or July, we'll be back to real in-person jury trials again, and that's what we need. And there is going to be a backlog, so it'll take us a little longer to get there.
So would you say that it's a fair statement, and this is just overall in the country, that, you know, the case value has dropped because, you know, attorneys aren't able to go to trial. And so there is a temptation to want to settle cases and keep things going. Has that affected and impacted the value of the cases and the recoveries that people are receiving?
The answer is, I will tell you, our personal experience has been no, but I think it's because of the types of cases we handle in our firm, where we have steadfastly said there will be no discount because of COVID-19. Now, I have heard that if someone has a practice that's more of a high volume practice, some of those lawyers have concluded that taking somewhat of a discount is necessary for the good of the client. And the key is, it's the client, the client, the client. We have to do what is best for the client. So let's just say that a client has a case, and I'm just going to make up a number, but it's worth $100,000. And you feel if you go to trial, you will get $150,000. The insurance company says, we're not going to pay that, but here's what we will do. We'll offer $85,000. A lot of lawyers talk to the client, they work around the fees, the costs, they settle it for $85,000. And if that works out better for the client, that's what the client wants to do, then it's important to do it that way. So it's what is happening with individual clients, individual cases. But overall, we have not done that. And that young lawyer that I was telling you about in our firm, he definitely hasn't done it. He is like a keg of dynamite when he's handling cases, and he will not settle anything for less than he feels it should be settled for.
I think I know who you're talking about. So, so you have practiced in many different areas of law.
Yes.
Can you mention some of those areas of law, and then I want to kind of inquire about what your favorites are.
Oh, well, I mean, I've both prosecuted and defended criminal cases. I've done product liability, aviation cases, medical malpractice cases, nursing home cases, trucking cases, death cases, paralysis cases, premises liability, negligent security, eminent domain, defamation of character, et cetera. The list could go on, but I have always looked at when a case comes in, my feeling is if you are a decent, hardworking lawyer and you know how to try a case, you pretty much can try any kind of a case. Now, I would not venture off to do something that is totally not in my wheelhouse. So years ago, a client came to me and said, we want you to defend in Alabama, defend us on a patent infringement type of a case, because we want you as a plaintiff's lawyer to be more of a plaintiff's lawyer than a defense lawyer and file a counterclaim.
Yeah.
And I said, after I reviewed it, I would be willing to do that, but if and only if you will allow, you will bring on board for me a patent attorney, intellectual property attorney, and a chemical engineer as a consultant that I can have unlimited access to. They said, yes, we did that, and things worked out well for the client in that case. But I would not just jump into a patent infringement case or something like that, that is just foreign to me or something I don't do on a regular basis.
Have there been, I assume you have handled a lot of different cases, and some of them have been, very emotional, and you are somebody that you open up your heart to your clients, and you treat them as your family, and you take on their cause as if it's your own or a family. Is that a lot emotionally to carry? Because you don't just have one or two or three cases. You have, you're handling many, many cases at a given time. How do you direct your energy and compassion, and then also have to be intellectually on point with how to work up a case and get ready for trial? That is a lot of things to juggle. How do you sort of divide or make sure you have good time management and also good management on your emotions, because you're giving and receiving a lot of energy?
You just go at it with everything you've got. But in my life, I have had in my wife, Nancy, who I still call my girlfriend after 51 years of marriage, someone who we are like molded together. We're so close. And everything that I've talked to you about, Nancy has been there every step of the way. We have always tried to do everything together, whether it was with the kids or as they have grown up.
Yeah.
But that emotional support is for one another is so important in all of this.
So it doesn't take away from, the rest of your life, essentially, because you do have to be present for, the day-to-day work and your family members and things like that. So you don't feel like you have no boundaries. You go in, you meet the clients, you let your guard down, you're always open, always vulnerable. Personally, because I also work with people that have been affected, it is when you are starting to ask those first questions and somebody starts to tell you their story, you're listening to them. You at that point become part of the story. You become engulfed in their emotions, in the chaos, in the tragedy. It's incredibly hard. And I think what I'm fascinated and intrigued about the most is lawyers that can handle and can strike some balance between being these incredibly compassionate, devoted human beings to their clients, but also be anchored in their strength and in their ability to be, strong to carry on with the business, with the case, with the personal issues that they have in their lives, right? So it's a tough balance, I think, to strike for most lawyers. Do you have any advice to younger lawyers who are trying to figure this out? How can we be all in but still be grounded and not lose the balance?
Well, when Teddy Roosevelt was campaigning, he had a wonderful phrase. He said, keep your eyes on the stars, but keep your feet on the ground. And he said that his mother taught him that lesson. And to me, that's very important, because if there's one thing that I do every day when I wake up, my eyes are on the stars, and I'm going on the assumption today is going to be the greatest day of my life. Now, you'll hear people say that, and a lot of people say it, but don't believe it. Anybody who knows me knows this. I believe it. I believe extraordinary things are going to happen every day and every week and every month, and they do.
Where does that faith come from?
That came from my mother and father, but I would say from my mother more than my father. She was, I'll just give you an example. If either myself or one of my brothers or sisters were, I don't know, a little pouty over something as a kid, she would go over to the piano and play some kind of a silly song. And then she'd go over and start tickling until they laughed. And then everybody was laughing. And she would always say, we're going to make every day wonderful. And she was as optimistic and Pollyanna-ish as anyone could be. And I think that's where I get that feeling from, that attitude. And people say, well, I'm a realist. I go, yeah, I'm a realist too. You can be a realist and be an optimist. Okay, you can, and it helps as you're moving forward and you are doing things and you're trying to help people in a case. And it's a matter of just the outlook that you have in the way you handle things. I just heard this the other night. Somebody was saying this. The most important thing that comes out of a crisis is what you learn about from the way you behaved during the crisis.
Do you self-assess still? Do you?
Yes.
Walk me through that process. How do you reflect on what you feel that you fell short, or maybe failed at something? How do you go through that process without hurting yourself with self-criticism? Because self-criticism holds a lot of people back.
Yeah, what I always learned, though, and happily I learned this at a young age. I think it's through not only my parents, but watching people, having great teachers who were mentors. But I think I learned it as much from certain sports as anywhere else. And it's the concept of, I was a running back and played a lot of football for a lot of years. If you're a running back, you're going to fumble the ball. Yeah. And sometimes when you fumble it, it is your fault. And when you fumble the ball and it's your fault, first thing is, my bad. You got to be able to look at everybody. That was my fault. You don't blame 50 other people for why you fumbled the ball. And then what you do is you get up and you go back to whatever position you're playing or to the bench if the other team has the ball and you're only playing offense, and you get ready for when you go back in. And you hold your head high. Hopefully you have supportive teammates, and you go as hard as you can on the next play or for the next game or whatever it may be. Mirena, I do know what it is like to lose a case. I do know what it is like to fail at something that has a lot of importance to me. You know, many years ago, I won't do the whole story, but I'll give you the shortened version. But many years ago, I was following this dream to create, to develop, to build, to construct what we referred to in what the newspapers called the world's first living office building. It was going to be an environmental wonderland of a building where we had 82 environmental features. We recycled our own water. All of the toilets flushed with rainwater, where we had catchment areas on the top of the building, which had what is called a living roof.
Yeah.
To make a long story short, it was a financial disaster for me. There were people who were saying, well, Johnny, you know, this happened and you couldn't have done that, or this happened, or it was timing and the economy went. No. It was poor judgments and decisions made by John Romano that made that happen.
Did that cause a lot of pain?
It caused a lot of pain, yes. But the pain that it caused, and the biggest lesson that I learned, Mirena, was this. We were talking about wisdom before, and when you do something that is unwise, meaning you haven't thought through all the consequences, you cause pain to other people who you love. And it's not right, it's not fair to cause pain to other people when it is unnecessary, as it is unnecessary to go off and build an experimental building when I hadn't thought through the what ifs. What if the economy takes a downturn? What would happen?
To be fair, a lot of people were affected in 2008, 2006, 2007, 2008. You were not the only one, but you found yourself in this crisis that affected your business, it affected your family. You still had to push through and continue doing what you've always done. So, but now you had this extra burden to carry. So how did you manage to come out of that?
There were many, I'll just tell you, emotional days and nights. I will tell you that shortly after everything came crushing down, I was in the car driving to a trial across the state, and people would be on the phone with me talking about not so much this case, but the building and what all had happened. And I would just start crying. It was so emotional. But when I got over there, I said, the crying's over. We're going to try the case. And we've got a sensational verdict in federal court on a case where they contested all of the issues. But what happened is, first and foremost, my angel in life, Nancy, was hovered over me to protect me. Not to say to me, it's okay, you didn't make a mistake. No. But to say, it doesn't matter what happened, I'm here. our children, their wives. You want to hear something funny? I haven't shared this with anybody that I can think of, but I still have a voicemail on my phone from one of my grandkids. He was 7 years old. This is amazing what happens. He goes to school one day because he heard that we were having these difficulties because of this building crisis. He had a big bag on it and he was seeking donations for me and for the law firm. And my daughter-in-law calls me and she goes, "Oh my God, I don't know what to say. I have to tell you what happened today. But one of the teachers said, your law firm's looking for donation." I mean, it was the sweetest thing. But the message that he left for me, I promise you, I'll play it for you. You will cry when you hear it. It is so beautiful.
Right
Because, well, he says, "Grandpa,
yeah.
I have the solution to save the building." And here he was with this big bag trying to get donations. So when your family comes together and they are there, and Mirena, I will have to tell you something remarkable. Everybody we were involved in, even the people we owed all of this money to because the building costs and everything it was so far crazy over budget what happened. It just was, it happened. It was unfortunate. Even, not all, but almost all of the creditors wrapped their arms around us and said, "Hey, we're going to get through this with you." And it was a beautiful thing. But if somebody were to say to me, what is the biggest lesson? It's what I said before, the problem of causing pain to others when you make an unwise decision. And if you look in life, I don't care if you look on TV tonight and you watch the pain that people are causing to one another, more often than not, it's because of poor judgment calls when they're not considering the pain their decisions may cause down the line to others.
And that's not always intentional, right? People make the wrong decisions because they simply don't have the information or the understanding.
It's true. No, that is true. That is true.
Analyze what could happen. I think for you, your was to create something, to be an example, to give other law firms, because law firms do, most of them own their own building, right? And this was a way to send, a green message to every professional maybe around the country, is to go green. And it was a beautiful building, and I've been in this building, and it's a remarkable building, and I know the passion that went into it. I know the struggles that went into it. So would you say, in terms of making business decisions, financial decisions for the firm, that your perspective has changed on how you think about the operations and how you invest in the growth and the scaling of your firm? Give me a little more.
Yeah. Well, two things. Let me tell you the most important part of it first. I have believed most of my life, and now it has been confirmed time and time again, that the wisest choice is, when it comes to people, make decisions with your heart. I hear people all the time, you shouldn't make decisions with your heart, make them with your brain. No, not when it comes to people. Important decisions about people, make those decisions with your heart. And by the way, sometimes you will make a mistake, but you will feel as though you did the right thing for the right reason. As to business decisions, You know what we did? I took the advice when everybody said, get a business manager. Get somebody with a financial background to run the business of the operation so that you can focus on handling cases and marketing, and somebody else can focus on the day-to-day business affairs of the law firm.
So there is always a struggle there. So what is your, advice to law firms about finding people and finding resources to make sure that that aspect of their business is taken care of and they can continue thriving and passionately help their clients?
Well, let me start with this concept. And I heard a talk the other day by a great lawyer from Miami named Stuart Ratson. And he said this, he goes, authenticity is the first cousin of credibility. And that resonated with me because what he was saying was genuineness, being authentic relates to credibility. I know of one funding company that gave a law firm an extraordinary amount of money on a line of credit. It's a firm out west. The firm took that money and instead of putting it into cases, they bought extraordinary, I don't know what else to say it, toys like a jet.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the firm imploded, the loan went bad.
Mhm.
And I will just tell you that if you owe money to a lender and the lender sees you bragging about your $80,000 watch
Yeah.
and your $320,000 sports car, they will not be sympathetic to what is happening to you.
Yeah.
I try to tell young lawyers, Mirena, don't ever get caught up in the facade of thinking that if you have a $3,000 suit, you're going to impress somebody. If you have a $200,000 car, you're going to impress somebody. You're not. They don't care about things like that. What they care about is how you treat them, how you make them feel, what you do for the system of justice, what you do for the courts, what you do for your clients.
Yeah.
So that authenticity is a part of this. And law firms have got to strive for that, to do what is authentic, instead of saying, let's go settle a big case so we can all buy X kind of cars.
Well, lawyers do like toys and they do like to show their.
They love them because they erroneously believe it's some kind of a status symbol that, like, if I'm driving X kind of a vehicle, notice I've been sticking away from naming any brands, but they will say, if I have this kind of a vehicle, I will be lifted up to where other lawyers and lawyers who've been practicing a long time will think, hey, he must be doing great, or she must have gotten a big verdict. Nobody thinks that way. I look at it and I go, I see a young lawyer who just wasted a bunch of money. And I see a young lawyer who's got a spouse, who's got 3 kids. What are you doing wasting money?
Well, I mean, I think different people enjoy different things. Um, I think if somebody is successful and they have the money to buy the toys, as long as they, like you said, are kind and are authentic, and are real and are doing what they love, I don't think there is anything wrong with it. But I think it is wrong when it's a status symbol, in the sense that that is the way that you're trying to prove how successful you are to your peers, which I think inherently it's a human It's a human pull to do that, right? When you are improving your status quo, you
Yep.
want others to know that.
It's an interesting um, thing to see what sparks interest of young lawyers.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I was at an AAJ convention and I was talking to some young lawyers. And a lawyer went walking by who is one of the greatest trial lawyers in the history of the country. And we're talking, and they're paying attention to what we're discussing. And I pointed that out to them, and they all go, yeah, okay. They wanted to just stay in the conversation. Not 2 minutes later, a lawyer goes walking by who is one of the great marketing gurus. And it was like they had wings. They went up 10 feet off the ground and they flew to the marketing lawyer. And I went, what a fascinating thing I've just seen. Here are young trial lawyers who could give a damn about going over to talk to one of the greatest trial lawyers ever. Yeah. But when it comes to, I don't know, it's an evolution in what people see as important in life. It's a fascinating thing to see.
Well, I think that is that's the underlying, I think, foundation of why there is some stereotyping that goes with, attorneys, but not just attorneys. It's other professions and other industries, I think, have that same symptom. But, the underlying, I think it's important to remember that the underlying foundation of the profession is to give everyone a voice and even the scales and be
Yes.
the person who's carrying on justice, because these are lives. You are affecting the rest of somebody else's life. And that is a very serious, a very important job. And to have raving fans, it starts with your clients and how you behave in your community. And you're a wonderful example of that. I know that you stay humble, that I think you've lived in the same home that you have had for many, many years. You're very simple in the ways that you handle yourself, and I love that about you. There's something wonderful and authentic and real about that, because what drives you, and it's very, very clear, is, like you said, is people, and it's emotion, and it's good and positive emotion. When you are going through pain and challenges and loss, and you lose a case, how do you get yourself back up to keep on going?
Number one, I'm sure you've heard the term spent in terms of athletics, that when you're out on the field, when the game is over, you should be spent. You have no energy. You're drained. Because you gave it your all. Some of the best lawyering I have ever done has been in cases where the verdict came back against our side. And when you've given it everything, you can feel good saying, we gave it everything. The jury makes the decision. They didn't see it our way. That's why we have jury trials. I tell Erik and Todd, I tell all of the lawyers in our firm, I tell people all around the country, when you lose a case, you have till midnight to sulk. When you win a case, you have till midnight to celebrate. And I'm exaggerating, obviously. If you get a big verdict, you're going to want to celebrate maybe a few days. Yeah, I know. But the key is I've seen some lawyers who at age 35 get a wonderful verdict and never another wonderful verdict ever. But the lawyers will go to seminars and speak about the one case forever and talk about it like they got the verdict last week. So that's why I say to lawyers, get it out of your system. Racehorse Haynes, a great criminal lawyer from Houston, Texas, used to say, if you have not gone to verdict in the last 6 months, you ain't a trial lawyer, you're a used to be trial lawyer. Right. And although I wouldn't go that far, I would say trial lawyers try cases continuously. And not that you got to have 10 trials a year, but as the years go on, you should be going to trial, and it might be 2 or 3 times a year. Some years you might try 5 cases, the next year you might have 1 trial, but you're trying a good number of cases. But you can't let a loss drag you down. You got to learn from it, understand the lessons, understand why you lost, analyze it, assess it, do an autopsy on it, whatever you want to call it, and then get it out of your system. Don't let it worry about you. I heard they were just around the Super Bowl time. One of the commentators during Super Bowl week was asking Tom Brady, how do you get your mind back in it when you throw an interception? And he goes, because I throw an interception, I go to the sidelines, and I'm either going to be mad at myself or mad at one of my players or mad at one of the coaches. Nowadays, he goes, they give me an iPad. I can look on the iPad, see what happened. I give him the iPad back, out of my mind. It's over. I don't care. It's the next play I worry about. We have to do the same thing as trial lawyers. In your financial business, you have to do the same thing. Teachers have to do the same thing. Look, if a teacher has 50 kids in a class, they're not all going to do as well as academically. Somebody's going to do better. Somebody won't do quite as well. And the teacher's not a failure because they don't all get 1,600 on the college entrance exam. The teacher has to do the best he or she can do to teach those kids to put information into their brain that they understand, they appreciate, they comprehend. That's what the teacher's job is about.
Tell me, because we sort of started talking about personal injury, criminal law, and then mass torts. How do you feel about mass torts and class actions? I know that you have tried to dabble into that area. It's a fascinating area. As you know, I do a lot of work in that space. What do you really think, or personally think, what is the difference between, working up these cases in a class and working on a single event case? Can you kind of paint that picture?
Yeah. Well, number one, the first of what I would call the mass tort cases, where there was a high volume, a high number of cases that we were doing in groups. It takes me back to the 80s when I was doing the DPT vaccine cases and the IUD cases, which were primarily Dalcon Shield IUDs, Copper 7, Tatum T, Lippy's Loop. We were doing all of those. In the single event case, you are focusing on that individual liability, causation of one, in just that case. Did the impact from the collision cause the herniation of the disc? And then if it did, what are the damages? And assuming you've got the damages, then what is there in the way of affirmative defenses? Maybe it's our client's fault, in part or in whole. And then is there insurance coverage? So those types of things you're focusing on. In the mass tort arena, you may have 500 roundup cases, Avandia, striker hip, etc. Those issues that I just outlined, you need to focus on for each of those cases at some point. But in the mass tort case, the case gets into an MDL, and the steering committee is doing that initial heavy lifting in terms of the overall liability issues. So all of a sudden, if you have 500, defective water bottle cases, if they get the case settled, then the matrix is set up and you become an administrator as opposed to a trial lawyer.
Yeah.
If it's at that point. Now, if it has to be tried, they'll try bellwether cases. And then if the litigation still doesn't settle, now it comes back to you. So my Roundup case, I would have to try. My Avandia case, I would have to try. Stryker hip, I would have to try. So it can come back. We do mass torts. I love mass torts. I will tell you this, what the Levin Papantonio firm has done and the Givens firm with mass torts made perfect is one of the most extraordinary things to happen in the legal world during my career. I so admire what they have done with mass torts made perfect. And what they have done is, the way I see it, they have made it all inclusive. They say, come to our meetings. We will not only teach you how to do it, we will share everything with you. And it's extraordinary. So
wonderful event.
I just think it's extraordinary.
A lot of yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I cannot imagine if lawyers want to do mass torts, how the thinking would be that they can miss a mass torts made perfect meeting. I am a promoter of theirs, a believer of theirs. I am in awe of what they've done. And unless I'm in trial, I go to every mass torts made perfect meeting.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I work with personal injury and mass tort class action firms, and a lot of personal injury attorneys will approach me and say, what's this mass tort made perfect all about? And I do say the same thing. It's one of the greatest legal events, at any given year. And now with national trial lawyers and having other lawyers from other areas of law there is very, very interesting and exciting. So I always say, go to a meeting, go sit, in some sessions and learn about how things are done, and create your own opinion, your own conclusion, because there is incredible potential for a law firm to be, taking on these types of cases, mass tort cases. As you know, they're all over the country and they're handled a little bit differently. So you can still participate and not be actively involved day to day with mass tort cases. But there is so much opportunity in that space. I don't think what Levin Papantonio have done, like you said, is extraordinary. They have really—
It really is, yeah.
Beyond the veil, and there is nothing is hidden. Everything, the secret sauce is at the event. You go and meet people who are seasoned in the industry, people who have been doing it for a while, who understand how to do it in smartly with financials, and also approach it and bringing in the right resources and talent to handle and take these cases to the finish line. But ultimately, I find it to be a very exciting area of law. Now, of course, there is room for improvement because these clients, being that they're in mass numbers, do not get the same treatment as a client would if it was a single event case. I think there is room for improvement there, but the overall scope and goal is, I think, very positive.
No, it's tremendous. And I encourage people to become involved in at least learning about mass torts. And if they go to the Mass Torts Made Perfect meeting, it's extraordinary. There are, Mirena, there are a number of seminar teaching institutions now all around the country. You have seminars with national trial lawyers, AAJ, State Trial Lawyers Association. You have these different methods of teaching, the case analysis method, Trojan horse, the Trial Lawyers College, trial school. I know there are others that I'm not mentioning, but
that's the question I have for you. Do you endorse, or do you not prefer? What methodology do you find most impactful and most useful?
all of them. And here's why. When somebody says, I'm going to teach you a method in my seminar on how to give like the perfect opening statement, and if you give the opening statement the way we teach you, you'll never lose a case, I go, just go away, stop. That's nonsense. But if you're teaching a different way of doing it, and the teachers have had success in doing it, all that is going to do is help me be a better lawyer. So I tell people, read all of their books, go to the seminars you can get to, and you will learn so much. You know, if you go to the AAJ Advanced College on Depositions, it's mind-boggling how you enhance your skills in preparing for taking depositions and using them at trial. I tell people you want to go to that. As you know, we're doing the Connectionology Seminars of America. We're doing the webinars, the seminar. I love that. I love Trojan Horse. Trial University is another one. There are so many that are good. Reptile. You're going to become a better lawyer if you learn from them, but never accept it when they say, this is the secret and the others are no good. That's nonsense.
It's a lot like religion, isn't it?
Yes.
So Workhorse is a seminar that you run, and it is an intense seminar. You don't let these attorneys, when they show up, take very long breaks. It's back to back to back, and some people love it and some people complain about it. Tell me your thought process when you put Workhorse together and how that has impacted so many lawyers around the state of Florida.
Well, it was in the mid-'80s. We just finished our 36th annual, and we had to do it virtually. So it was a 56-hour webinar.
Wow.
But back in the mid-'80s, I spoke to the then director of seminars for what was then called the Academy of Florida Trial Lawyers, now FJA. And I said, there's a problem in educating lawyers. And here's the problem. All of these things are set up as cocktail parties and tourism events. And oh, by the way, there's a little bit of education here and there. And I told her, I said, you know, my dad and my father at the time was 75 years old, a doctor. And I went, Nancy and I and the kids went down to see my dad and my mom. They were down at a seminar in Miami. And we get down there, it's about 8 o'clock at night. We get up to the room. I said, where's Daddy? She goes, oh, he's down in the room at the seminar. I go, the seminar's going on tonight? She goes, oh yeah. He was down there at 6 in the morning. I go, wow. So I go walking down, I find him. There's a seat right next to him. I pull in, I sit down. He was surprised to see me come in and sit there. And I find out this was a multi-day seminar, 6 in the morning till 11 at night.
Wow.
And the place was packed. And I was beyond impressed. So I told her, we need to do a seminar that's not a big cocktail party. And I'm all for cocktail parties. I'll enjoy the parties as much as anybody. But I said, I want to do a seminar. We're going to do 3 days. And we're going to do 6 in the morning till midnight. She goes, no, we can't do that. So we agreed.
I would have said no.
We agreed 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. for 3 days. By the way, now it's 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. for 4 days. Although we give them a break on Friday, the final day, and we ended at 3. And it is intense. We don't let them leave. We bring in lunch, we bring in breakfast, we bring in dinner. And it has a cult following. And
it's packed. It's always packed. And I'm out, I'm there in my high heels walking around, and I'm like, when is this thing going to be over? This is great.
Oh, I know. And what's really great is, you'll pick up one of the critique forms and it'll say, this was really amazing. My favorite seminar. I loved it. I'm getting all this CLE. Okay. Then there'll be another one I'll look at and it'll say, John Romano, you are a super bastard. And it will be somebody saying, so let me see if I got this straight. You bring us to a seminar and you say, bring your families to Disney World. We bring our families and you won't let us spend any time with our families. I said, well, that's part of it. Anyway, they love it. And we do. It's great CLE. We always bring in some headliner speakers like we had Nick Wallenda right after he walked Grand Canyon, gave a great motivational speech. Abby Wambach, captain of the women's world soccer and gold medal Olympic team, just incredible. Elizabeth Smart from Salt Lake City. We had Lee Corso. I mean, we bring in all kinds of men and women as headliner speakers who are not lawyers. And then we really go to it. And it's multiple half-day sessions, morning, afternoon, and night. And we limit it to a certain subject. So it might be 4 hours of med-mal, 5 hours of product liability, 4 hours our settlement institute, et cetera. And we just love it. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Be there, Mirena. You need to be there. Number 37 is coming up.
No, I will be there. I mean, I'm local, so I have no excuse, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being around people again.
Oh, I know.
I also hear you at your seminars and everywhere you are you're always motivating and encouraging other lawyers to participate in the sessions in Tallahassee and become more involved. And I know that that's always a topic that you all raise at FJA events. Do you feel that attorneys are too busy or just too distracted from what's going on, or has the participation increased over the years, decreased? Give me a little color on that.
The good news is in the years I was going through the chairs, we had a core group of members around the state and our board and our officers who were rabid about these political issues and the importance of lobbying, going to Tallahassee, being involved in politics, fundraising for politics. I am so proud to say they're just as rabid. And it's a new group. Every maybe 15 years, you see a ton of new faces who are doing it, but it's so important. Yeah. If you look right now, I mean, Leslie Kroger just finished up as president. Erik is president right now. Coming behind Erik, Tiffany Faddis. I say that I'm ultra proud that we have 2 women in the chairs. When I was going through the chairs, when I was president, the president-elect was Karen Gevers. Karen Gevers is the person who I said was the single greatest lobbyist in the history of planet Earth. She was extraordinary in what she did. But when you go up there, it just is so vital, so essential for lawyers to be involved. And it is inexcusable for any plaintiff lawyer to not be giving money to the cause, to not help, to not do his or her part. Because if we don't, they will take away and chip away and take areas of our practice away from us. We've seen what tort reform has done in different states, and we have to be ever vigilant and fight it day in and day out. And that will never stop.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that you're part of almost every aspect in the Florida, Florida law, scene, and you're always encouraging, motivating, encouraging people to become more active and educating them about what the stakes are, because I think a lot of people simply don't know what the stakes are. And sometimes just raising awareness is key to bringing up the numbers to have more participants. But with all of the conversations about law and politics and finances, I'm curious to know, what is in your bucket list as John Romano? What does John Romano want to do in the next 5 or 10 years? I know you've been married to your wonderful wife, Nancy, for 51 years. I adore Nancy. I think she's just a wonderful human being, a reflection of you. You both are a reflection of each other in many ways. But are there
We have
things?
fun. I will say we do have fun.
Yeah. Well, tell me some things that the two of you do or plan on doing in the very near future.
Traveling is something we have always loved. For the longest time, we would go on annual ski trips, especially when the kids were growing up. We love doing that. We still love to go out and go skiing. In fact, if everything goes right, I have an appointment next week with, as I call him, a medical expert, Dr. Slopes, because I expect to be on the slopes in Park City, Utah, at least for 2 or 3 days next week. But we love that. We've loved doing those river cruises in Europe on the Danube and on the Rhine River. So travel, I think, is something that Nancy and I love to do. We love, especially when we can travel with our children and their wives and the grandkids, or with special friends in our lives. I've always loved traveling with lawyers and doing these meetings. I can tell you this, if I know I'm going to be going to a seminar, and the seminar is, it doesn't matter where it is. Let's say we're going to Chicago for a seminar. And I know that so many of our friends from around the country are going to be going. We know that you're going to be going. We know that other people who we work with in our practice, I get excited about it 3 weeks ahead of time. I'm starting to look forward to it. I can't wait till we get up there. I love seeing everybody and being with them and spending time with them. And to me, it's just a joy. But in our lives, I think it's time with family, seeing the firm grow in many ways. I love watching the development of young lawyers. It is so fun, so exciting. And it's almost like, you see a 4-speed car and you go first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear. It's the same thing with young lawyers. And all of a sudden, when one of them just shifts into fourth gear, slams on the accelerator, and I sit back and go, wow, look at what that lawyer has developed into. And I'm seeing it now with lawyers we have in the firm, some young lawyers. They're at a different level all of a sudden. And no, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens through a process. But I think that would be wonderful. I love seeing that. I want to stay lawyering my entire life. But I do think that the traveling is so enjoyable for us. That's what we love.
So if and I love that. It's wonderful. I think traveling and exploring is something everybody should do. But if somebody reached out to you and wanted to get some mentorship from you and wanted to learn from John Romano, are you open to that? I know that you have a lot going on, but I'm sure there's lawyers out there that would love to reach out and spend 30 minutes with you a month, or shadow you or whatever, just to see how John Romano operates?
I would do it joyfully and in a heartbeat. I love doing that, and I'm a phone call away. It's interesting that you bring that up, because one of the things we're adding into Workhorse next year is an entire time period where I'm going to bring in a number of lawyers who I think most people will say these are 10 or 12 of the greatest lawyers in America for private one-on-one sessions. So a lawyer can be a young lawyer, might be a lawyer 60 years old, who says, you're telling me I get 2 hours or 1 hour, however we'll work it out, with Lisa Blue, with Randy McGinn, with Diane Weaver, with Chris Searcy, with Steve Yared, That's what we're going to be doing at Workhorse next year. And it will be a wonderful experience, because they'll go into a private room and it's one-on-one as a part of Workhorse. You're spending an hour with one of these great lawyers.
Wow. Well, I would love to have, Lisa Blue mentor me.
Oh, she's extraordinary. And remember, Lisa is not only a fabulous courtroom advocate, she also is a psychologist who is a jury and a trial and litigation consultant. So she's like the total package.
She's a total package. Every time I see her, I'm in awe of her, and I want to be her when I grow up. So
no, she's amazing. She is amazing.
That's wonderful. Well, John, it's been a joy speaking with you, interacting with you. Every time we talk, I get off the phone or a Zoom call, and I'm just, you motivate me, and I keep doing what I do because I love working with people like you. So I appreciate the time that you took to be on this podcast. It means a lot to me. Continue doing what you do. You're always going to thrive, and you're always going to influence people. So please never stop lawyering, never stop.
I won't. And look, I can't thank you enough. As you know, you are very special, very extraordinary. And that you day in and day out, you really do the impossible for people. And part of the reason you do it is, Mirena, you are a true visionary. And a visionary to me is someone who sees the impossible and makes it happen. And you are always trying to identify ways to take steps for people, for law firms, for all sorts of individuals to make it happen. So I can't thank you enough. And you are a blessing to the legal profession and all that you do for so many in law. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm going to start crying. Thank you, John. I hope we can continue having these conversations, and
we can do it.
We'll be a guest again in the future. I think this is going to be my new passion, is doing this podcast. So thanks again.
Well, this has been fun. Okay. Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you are notified whenever a new episode is posted. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, this is Mirena Umizaj, bringing heart into the business of law.